I've always believed that if you want to catch a liar, give them the freedom to speak, just not to you. Let them talk to the world, to their friends, to their reflection, and eventually, they'll forget which version of the truth they last told. That's exactly how I ended up staring at her old iPad. Yes, the one she claimed was too slow to bother with, as it lit up in my hands with a group chat notification labeled, Wine Witch's Wineglass Fire. The title was dumb enough, but what caught my eye was the preview. If Jason ever finds out, we'll have to move to Fiji face with years of joy, face with years of joy, face with years of joy. Now, unless I'd suddenly developed a reputation for violent outbursts, which I haven't, or she was involved in something just slightly worse than buying an expensive purse. There was only one reason a tropical escape plan was getting tossed around like a casual joke. It was Sunday morning, and the air in our house was heavy with the kind of silence you only notice when you know something is about to die, maybe a relationship, maybe your old self. She was in the kitchen humming to herself like some smug step-forward wife, scraping burnt bits off her gluten-free toast like it was a normal day. But nothing about that day was normal. For starters, she made 2 cups of coffee. We've been married long enough for her to know I don't touch the stuff. Caffeine gives me migraines and existential dread in equal measure. But there they were, her favorite chipped mug and a second one, black and steaming, across from her plate. When I asked who it was for, she said, "Oh, I just forgot," and tried to laugh it off. But her laugh, it was an octave too high, her eyes darting not to me but to the staircase, like she was calculating an escape route. That's when the math started adding up. I didn't say anything, just walked over to the cup, picked it up, and took a whiff. Not store-bought. French press. Bold roast. Expensive. Someone who knows coffee. Not her. She always made that pumpkin spice garbage that smelled like a candle shop had vomited into a cup. I looked back at her and gave her a small smile, the kind that says, "You're not as clever as you think, sweetheart." She stared too long, like she was trying to decode what I knew. And in that moment, she made her first mistake. She turned her phone screen down on the counter. She's never done that. Never. That's the kind of detail a cheater misses when they've gotten comfortable, when they think you're too dumb, too soft, too in love to notice. But I noticed everything. Every micro-expression, every misstep, every lie she wrapped in silk and tossed into the trash hoping I'd never dig it out. She left the room to take a quick shower, and I sat there, sipping that damn coffee like it was poison, because maybe it was. Not the kind that kills your body, the kind that kills illusions. And it was scalding and bitter and perfect. I opened that iPad, pulled up the Wine Witch's group chat, and let it all bleed out. Screenshots. Emojis. Inside jokes about how clueless I was. References to nights she was supposedly with her sister. Little winks and comments like, "Hope the hubby didn't smell the cologne," face with years of joy, and "Girl, your man is a snooze fest. I'd cheat too." These women weren't just laughing at me. They were celebrating my ignorance. Toasting to it. And the best part? She left the same device synced to her cloud. Every message, every dirty selfie, every detail mine now. I didn't feel rage. Not yet. What I felt was the cold, calculated satisfaction of a man who knows he holds the knife but chooses not to stab, yet. She came downstairs wrapped in a towel, humming some stupid Dua Lipa song like the queen of lies she is. She kissed my cheek like nothing was wrong and asked if I wanted eggs. I said, "Sure, make me something special." She smiled, relieved, turned away to the stove. And that's when I started building her cage. Not a prison with bars, something more subtle. Something psychological. I texted her mother a warm message about being grateful to have such a supportive wife. I messaged her best friend, who was not in the group chat, a thank you for helping with our anniversary gift. I called her sister and asked if she'd be okay babysitting for a weekend getaway I was planning. With every friendly, cheerful lie I dropped, I drove tiny, invisible wedges between her and the people she would eventually turn to when the walls started closing in. Because I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. Where's the satisfaction in that? I wanted her to squirm. To sit at dinners with friends who suddenly act a little colder. To wonder why her mom stopped calling as often. To notice her best friend ghosting her texts. To feel paranoia creeping like a slow, venomous fog. And when she finally asks me, "Is something going on?" I'll smile and say, "I don't know. Is there?" Then I'll go back to sipping that awful, bitter coffee, just the way her mystery man liked it. At first, it was almost too subtle to notice, like a draft in a closed room. Just enough to raise goosebumps, but not enough to get up and shut the window. We were good, or so I thought. Steady routines, shared dinners, small inside jokes. She still kissed me before bed, still asked about my day, still laughed at my dumb attempts at sarcasm. It was comfortable, familiar, the kind of life people post about with hashtags like #grateful and #blessed. But comfort has a way of numbing the senses, and I realize now that it was the perfect anesthetic for what she was slowly amputating me. The first shift came wrapped in pretty language. She said she was focusing on her inner world, that she'd been neglecting herself. I didn't think much of it. I mean, who doesn't want their spouse to grow? She started reading new books, mostly with pastel covers and titles like Reclaiming Your Fire or Boundaries Are Love. I teased her about it gently, and she smiled, tight-lipped, not her usual grin, and said, "You wouldn't get it." That was the first fracture. Small, hairline, almost invisible. But it spread. She started going out more. Not wildly, not suspiciously, just often. Book club, yoga, self-care night. I trusted her. We'd been through enough. I figured if this helped her feel alive, why stand in the way? But then the stories stopped matching. One night, she came home wearing heels that didn't match her gym bag. Her makeup still fresh, too fresh, like she'd just applied it. She said they went for drinks after class. No big deal, right? Except the yoga studio was 10 minutes from our house, and she came home 2 hours late. I told myself traffic. I told myself she deserved her own time. But the gnawing began. Tiny, hollow bites at my sanity. Then her wardrobe changed. Not all at once, just little pieces. New bras I hadn't seen. Lingerie I didn't recognize. When I asked about them, she shrugged. Just treating myself. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her. But why buy things she never wore around me? Her phone was suddenly always face down. Notifications turned off. She claimed it was to reduce distractions, which somehow didn't apply to her endless scrolling when we were supposed to be watching something together. She changed her phone password. That one stung. She said she'd read an article about privacy being healthy in long-term marriages. I nodded like an idiot, pretending that made sense. But late at night, when I'd reach for her, and she'd roll over with a mumbled, "Not tonight," the cold in our bed matched the cold in my gut. She made new friends, people I'd never met, names that floated in conversation but never attached to faces. Jen says I should try paddleboarding. Maya swears by this new meditation retreat. One time I asked, "When can I meet them?" She paused too long before saying, "It's kind of my own thing. You know, space." That word again. Space. Suddenly our life was a solar system, and I was being shoved into the outer rim. She started journaling obsessively, waking up early to manifest, spending hours in cafes with her laptop open, typing furiously, yet always slamming it shut when I approached. "Just some personal writing," she'd say, then switch tabs. Even her playlists changed. No more shared playlists. No more our song. Now it was all moody indie stuff, like every lyric was written by someone trying to justify betrayal with metaphors and soft piano chords. Then there were the purchases. New perfumes, spa days, massage appointments, self-gifting, she called it. I never complained. We could afford it. But when I found 2 charges from a hotel spa in a town she never mentioned visiting, I asked casually, "Did you go to Brighton recently?" She blinked, paused, then smiled. "Oh yeah, Maya and I did a girls' trip. Totally forgot." But she hadn't forgotten. Her face told me that. She remembered every detail. She just hadn't expected the question. And there was no photo evidence. No check-ins. Nothing online. Because now her social media was private. Locked down. I only realized it when I clicked her profile from my work account to show a coworker our wedding photos, and got hit with "This profile is private." I asked her about it. She said she was just curating her digital energy. Whatever that meant. I laughed. She didn't. Even her body changed. Not in a way I could criticize. She looked amazing, more toned, more alive, but that glow wasn't for me. She started sleeping with her back turned, arms crossed. One night, I leaned in to kiss her neck, and she shuddered. Not with pleasure, but something else. Discomfort. I whispered, "Are we okay?" And she said, "Of course," without even looking at me. Her voice was soft, but her eyes were glued to her phone. That night, I lay awake listening to her fingers tapping on the screen while I stared at the ceiling, pretending to believe her. The final crack before everything came down wasn't dramatic. It was a Tuesday. She sat across from me, smiling over dinner, telling me about a new art class she'd enrolled in. Her eyes were bright, her face animated, but none of it was directed at me. I realized then I was no longer in her story. I was just the man paying for the scenery while she auditioned for a new co-star. Still, I smiled. Still, I nodded. Because when someone you love starts building a life that doesn't include you, the most dangerous thing you can do is let them think you haven't noticed. It was a Thursday evening, the kind of gray, uneventful weekday where everything feels muted, like the world's volume's been turned down just enough to make you feel alone. She said she was working late, a strategy session with her new marketing team at a co-working space downtown. She even wore her little blue blazer, the one she only dusts off for meetings with execs, and kissed me goodbye like it meant something. I nodded, smiled, wished her luck. Then I watched the location-sharing app we'd both set up years ago when we used to think transparency meant something. It had been off for months on her end, she claimed an update must have reset it. But tonight, for whatever reason, it flicked back on. Maybe she forgot. Maybe the app glitched. Doesn't matter. What matters is that it lit up, and for 10 seconds, I saw her little blue dot, nowhere near downtown, not in any co-working space, not near her office, not anywhere she had reason to be. She was parked behind a strip of condos in a bland suburb 30 minutes away, right next to an address I didn't recognize but would later memorize like scripture. The location vanished just as fast as it appeared. I sat completely still on the couch, not blinking, my beer warm in my hand. I didn't text her. I didn't call. I didn't even refresh the app. I just sat there, eyes fixed on the spot where her dot had been, like I could will it back into existence. 2 hours later, she walked through the door humming some upbeat song, her keys jingling like bells of mockery, and said something about how productive the meeting had been. I looked up from the TV and smiled. Not wide. Just enough to play the part. You look tired, I said. She nodded, kissed me, said she needed a shower. I watched her walk upstairs, still in that blazer, her heels clicking too confidently for someone who had supposedly been locked in a conference room brainstorming slogans. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. I knew what I'd seen, knew what was missing. But the confirmation, the final blow, came the next morning in the most ordinary way possible. I was making breakfast, scrolling through my email while she got dressed for another long day, and one of my synced Google accounts pinged with a new device login notification. An old shared iCloud login, back when we trusted each other enough to sync calendars. Her MacBook had reconnected to the account, must have been during one of her rare oversights, and in the process, had dumped a batch of synced text messages into the shared archive. Normally, I wouldn't have checked. But my finger moved on its own, like it had a separate will, like some deeper part of me, older than thought, was guiding me into the dark with surgical precision. There weren't many messages. Just a short thread. A name I didn't recognize, Travis, work thing, she'd once said when his name flashed briefly during a dinner last month, but the tone was unmistakable. Not crude. Not explicit. Worse. Intimate. Effortless. Familiar. She wrote, "Last night was exactly what I needed. You always know how to shut off my brain." Followed by a heart. Not the red one. The subtle one. The one she used with me back when we first started dating, before love turned into logistics. His reply was short, possessive. "I hate watching you leave, but I love knowing where you'll end up." That's what did it. Not the sentiment. Not the affair itself. But the assumption baked into those words, that she wasn't just cheating, she was his. Like I didn't exist. Like she was a rented car that someone else kept parked overnight and returned just in time for the illusion to continue. I closed the laptop slowly, placed it on the counter, and stirred the eggs. She walked in minutes later, heels in hand, asking if I'd seen her scarf. I turned, looked her dead in the eyes, and said, "Nope, haven't seen it." She smiled, pecked my cheek, and walked out. I watched her go without blinking, like watching a stranger exit my house. Something inside me shifted, permanently. A deep, quiet severing. I didn't feel hurt. Not the kind you think of. No rage. No heartbreak. Just the eerie clarity of a man who's realized the truth and feels nothing about it anymore. She was already gone. Had been for months. All that was left now was the shape of her, the residue of a person who used to love me. And now I had what I needed. Not to confront her. Not to beg or rage or cry. But to plan. I cleaned the pan. Sat down. Pulled out a notebook. And started writing. Not a letter. Not a goodbye. But a map. A blueprint. Because if she thought I was going to crumble, she didn't know me at all. I'd been her foundation for years. The silent support. The builder of our world. And now I would become the architect of her collapse. Not loudly. Not suddenly. But in quiet, invisible moves. One decision at a time. The war had already begun. She just didn't know it yet. She had no idea I'd stopped trusting her, that every smile I gave her now was a mask, every nod a calculation. I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to accuse. That's what weak men do. Instead, I became the silence she thought was safe. I moved like fog, slipping into spaces she never checked, listening in ways she never expected. I started with her calendar. Not the one on her phone, that was clean, curated, clearly built with plausible deniability in mind, but the one in her email drafts, the one she used to quickly note things before officially updating the real schedule. Sloppy. In it, I found a pattern of yoga retreats and self-care brunches that just happened to fall near the same neighborhood, the one where her blue dot had betrayed her. I didn't confront. I adjusted. The next time she said she was headed to her sacred sister circle, I offered to drive her. Casual. Smiling. She laughed and said it was really just a women's thing and that I'd feel weird. I agreed. Let her walk out the door thinking she was still ahead. She wasn't. She never would be again. I created a burner email, one link to a fake personality I sculpted over 2 hours one night while she slept in the same bed as me, dreaming of someone else. I made him perfect, stylish, charming, just flirtatious enough to be believable. I had him reach out to her under the guise of a brand looking to partner with local influencers for a boutique fitness event. She bid instantly. Sent back a thank you, a headshot, a link to her profile, even bragged about how she'd love to attend. I told her Travis had recommended her name. Her reply came less than a minute later. Oh my God, love Travis. What a sweetheart. Sweetheart. Not colleague. Not acquaintance. I sent the whole thread to a fresh folder, marked it insurance. Just one more thread to pull when the time came. Next, I reviewed our shared bank history. I'd never looked closely before. Trust is a funny thing like that. But now I studied it like scripture. Small, recurring charges from a florist I didn't recognize. Monthly, always on a Thursday. That same Thursday, she always came home smelling different. Not perfume. Fresh-cut roses. I visited the shop, told them I was her assistant, and asked if I could update the delivery address for her usual bouquet. The girl behind the counter smiled and said, of course. She always has them sent to that loft near Camden Street, right? So romantic. I didn't flinch. I smiled back. Yes, I said. Very. Then I walked out and sat in my car, letting the moment settle in my bones like ice. She had a love nest. A second life. A place that wasn't just emotional, it was physical. Real. But I still didn't move. I wasn't ready to strike. Not yet. Instead, I turned to her best friend, the one I always found irritating, loud, too full of secrets she enjoyed too much. I didn't follow her. I followed her patterns. The friend posted constantly, tagged everything, never used privacy settings. It was through her stories that I pieced together a timeline that shattered everything. There she was, just a week ago, at a rooftop bar, panning across the skyline with a clink of glasses. I paused, rewatched, frame by frame. And there, just for a second, was my wife, laughing in the background, her hand resting on someone's knee. The same someone who had blocked me on Instagram 2 months ago after tagging her in a photo she never mentioned. I took a screenshot, cropped it, saved it. Another piece for the vault. Then I messaged her best friend from a different burner, this one pretending to be a woman who had found a lost earring in that very bar, asking if the friend had lost it. The bait was simple. The friend replied, haha no, but maybe check with Elle. She was there that night with Travis. They left early, LOL. Left early. Together. Unplanned. Convenient. Then came the trap questions. I began lacing our conversations with landmines, watching her step on every one. I'd mention a colleague she'd supposedly seen that day, someone I knew had been out of the country, and she'd nod, say, oh yeah, we had lunch. I'd pretend not to notice, offer to send him an invite to our dinner party. She'd freeze. Just a second. But I saw it. Every time. Micro-expressions. Delays. The way her lips would part slightly before responding, searching for the next lie. I asked if she wanted to try that new Thai place downtown, the one across the street from the florist. She blinked twice, hesitated, said, oh, isn't that place closed? No, it wasn't. I'd eaten there last Tuesday, alone, just to test her. Every time she lied, she added another brick to the wall I was building around her. And I never flinched, never let on. I kissed her goodnight. I held her hand in public. I cooked her favorite meals. But every word, every gesture, every touch was now a weapon I had full control over. I was no longer her husband. I was the warden of a prison she didn't even know she was living in. She thought she was dancing through a lie. But I was the music. And I was about to change the tune. It was a charity gala, black tie, 3-course meal, dim lighting and soft jazz echoing off crystal chandeliers, the kind of event she used to beg me to attend, and now pretended was just part of her networking responsibilities. I reserved a table weeks in advance, confirmed twice, even arranged for the perfect seat placement. She didn't expect me to be there, not this year. She thought I had backed out due to work stress, the same excuse she'd been tossing around like confetti every time she wanted to vanish for the night. So when she walked into that ballroom in a midnight blue dress I didn't recognize, her arm tucked around the very man who used to be just a colleague, her smile cracked for a half-second when she saw me seated calmly at the center table, already sipping from a glass of water I hadn't touched. I didn't wave. I didn't blink. I watched her walk toward me with carefully manufactured grace, the man trailing just behind her like a dog that thought it was a wolf. "Jason," she said, that high-pitched voice she used whenever she was caught off guard. "I didn't know you were coming after all." She kissed my cheek. I didn't turn. I simply gestured to the empty chair beside me and said, "Sit. Both of you." Her companion gave me that half-smile men wear when they think they've won something they haven't earned. I ignored him, focused on her. Let the silence linger until she began to shift in her seat. Then I opened the folder sitting on the table. Not digital, paper. Tangible. The weight of truth made flesh. First page, a photo of the two of them entering that rented condo on Camden. Second, the florist receipt, a bouquet of white lilies signed from him to her, delivered every month. Third, a screenshot of her messages, the ones with pet names, promises, timelines. She paled like a funeral in slow motion. "It's not what you think," she blurted, grabbing at the pages as if erasing them could rewrite the last 6 months. "We were just talking. We never," but I raised a single finger and she stopped. The man beside her looked confused, then concerned, then quietly terrified. I turned to him. "Does your wife know?" I asked. His face drained instantly. "Your wife," she echoed, like a child learning that fire burns only after being scorched. He stammered something about separation and misunderstandings. I didn't care. I turned back to her. She went for the second script. "I was lonely, Jason. You stopped paying attention. You were always so distant." I nodded slowly. "Yes," I said, "because I trusted you." She tried again. "It was a mistake. It didn't mean anything." I leaned forward. "You wrote him a poem. You called him your anchor. You used the same words you said to me when we were dating." She tried to laugh, tried to shake it off like it wasn't lethal. "You're being dramatic. Relationships are complicated." I tilted my head. "Is that why you told him you were planning to leave me after your birthday? Is that why you said you just needed time to secure a clean exit?" Her breath caught like a choke. "You read my private messages," she snapped. I smiled for the first time. "I read the lies you told about me, and I matched them to the lies you told to me. They lined up perfectly." That's when her mask cracked. "You think you're some victim here?" she hissed, louder now, drawing eyes from nearby tables. "You always act like the hero, like you're so perfect. Maybe if you weren't so cold, I wouldn't have needed someone else." And there it was, blame, in full bloom. I leaned back, unbothered. "So your solution to our marriage struggling was to create another one in secret?" She didn't answer. Just sat there, chest rising and falling like she was bracing for impact. Then came the worst phase, mockery. "You think this makes you powerful," she said, voice sharp. "You've been snooping, tracking, hiding. That's not strength. That's pathetic." I didn't flinch. "No," I said calmly. "Pathetic is sleeping beside someone every night and pretending their loyalty is real while planning your next lie. What I did was patient. What you did was cowardly." The man beside her finally stood. "I should go," he mumbled. "You should," I said, "but not before you take this." I slid an envelope across the table. Inside were photos. All of her. All time-stamped. All showing just how replaceable he was in her game. "She said you were boring too." That's what she does. She studies you. Becomes exactly what you want. Then feeds off your praise like a parasite. He didn't speak again. He left. She didn't. She just sat there, frozen, mascara starting to smear. "What are you going to do to me?" she whispered. And that was when I knew she'd finally understood. I wasn't going to raise my voice. I wasn't going to throw a drink or storm out. No, I was going to take everything she built and burn it down without ever lighting a match in front of her. "I'm not going to do anything," I said, voice steady. "You're going to do it to yourself." Slowly. Over time. As everyone you lied to starts asking questions you can't answer without choking. The music resumed behind us. The clinking of cutlery. The fake laughter. But at our table, the air was thick and still. I didn't leave. Not yet. I wanted her to sit in it. In the truth. In the exposure. In the unbearable weight of being seen for who she truly was. And so I sat there, watching her unravel, silent and satisfied, knowing this was only the beginning. She showed up at the house the next day like a storm that had lost its direction, hair a little too neat, makeup a little too forced, wearing the same fake smile she used to use on strangers when she wanted something. I didn't greet her. I didn't open the door with any emotion at all. Just stepped aside and let her in. She started talking before I even closed it behind her. "We need to talk," she said, pacing like a trapped animal. "You blindsided me last night." That was low. I didn't respond. Just watched her unravel from the inside out. She turned to face me and went straight into blame mode. "You smothered me," she snapped. "You were always home, always watching." I couldn't breathe. I gave a single nod, then replied, "Yet you stayed. Slept in my bed. Took my money. Wore the ring." That struck something, her jaw tightened. "You were boring," she hissed. "Predictable. Everything about our life was dull. I wanted something real." I stepped closer, calm. I steady. "You mean someone who didn't know you well enough to see through you yet?" Her eyes flared with heat. "This wouldn't have happened if you were a real man." I almost smiled at that. Almost. "A real man," I said quietly. "One who lets his wife sneak out of his life and call it growth, while she spreads her legs for a fantasy she'll regret in a year?" She slapped the table, "Not me. Not yet," and screamed, "You're so cold. You don't even care. Are you even human?" I stared at her like a surgeon observing a failed patient on the table. "Not anymore," I replied. "You killed that part." She tried to pivot. "You don't know what it's like to feel invisible." "I gave everything, Jason. Everything. And you made me feel small." I let that hang for a moment, then leaned against the wall. "Funny," I said. "You made me feel invisible too. But instead of cheating, I rebuilt myself. Quietly. Alone." She looked away, arms folded, that familiar pout returning, the one she used when she didn't get her way as a teenager, long before we met. "You were never emotionally available. You made me feel like I was drowning." "No," I said sharply. "You drowned because you swam into the deep end with no intention of telling me. I was the one holding the lifeline. You just decided you didn't need it." She laughed bitterly, like I'd told a joke she didn't understand. "You really think you're the victim here?" she said, voice rising. "After everything you did? The control, the pressure, the expectations." I tilted my head. "I expected honesty. I expected loyalty. That's not control. That's the bare minimum. But I understand why it felt suffocating. Truth has that effect on liars." Now she was pacing again, trying to find a crack in the armor, a weakness to exploit. "You think you're above all this?" she barked. "You think being calm makes you right?" I said nothing. Just watched. She hated that more than anything. "Say something," she snapped. "Yell, cry, throw something. At least act like you give a damn." I shrugged. I did. Back when it mattered. Back when I still believed the woman I married was in the room. That stopped her. She blinked fast, lips trembling, like the words hit her harder than she expected. "You're just doing this to hurt me," she whispered. "To punish me." "No," I said. "I'm doing this to move forward. You're just the weight I had to cut loose." Her voice dropped, almost pleading now. "We can fix this, Jason. Please. Don't throw everything away over a mistake." I looked her dead in the eyes. "You didn't trip and fall into his bed. You plotted your way there. Don't insult me by calling it a mistake." She tried again, softer now, like maybe a tender tone could rewind the clock. I was scared. I thought I was losing myself. "He just made me feel seen." I nodded. "That's what predators do. They make broken people feel whole for a while." Her face twisted at the word broken, but I didn't stop. I saw every shift, every lie, every excuse wrapped in therapy jargon you picked off Instagram. You didn't evolve. You escaped accountability and called it growth. She was losing her footing now, the mask slipping with every breath. "So that's it?" she asked, voice shaking. "You're just going to walk away? Pretend none of this mattered?" I stepped closer, inches from her face, and said, "Oh, it mattered. Every betrayal taught me exactly who you are. And now, I'm giving you the gift of living with that truth. Every day." Her eyes darted, desperate now, looking for a way back in, some weakness, some thread she could pull to unravel me the way she used to. But there was nothing left. Nothing to beg. Nothing to manipulate. You used to love me, she whispered. I nodded. I did. Deeply. Which is why I will never allow you near that version of me again. She sank onto the couch like her bones had given up. No more venom. No more clever insults. Just silence, and the faint tremble of a woman who realized she gambled a kingdom for a few nights in a stranger's arms and lost everything. And I stood above it all, not triumphant, not cruel, just free. She thought my silence meant surrender, that the cold precision in my eyes was numbness. It wasn't. It was war strategy. I didn't react because I didn't need to, not when every move I made from the moment she confessed was already engineered to dismantle her life piece by piece. I started with the documents. Every message, every photo, every invoice tied to that other man was already backed up in 3 different places: cloud storage, an encrypted USB in my office, and a separate hard drive locked in a safety deposit box she didn't know existed. I cataloged her lies like evidence at a crime scene, each file carefully labeled, deception in chronological order. Then I contacted a lawyer, not just any lawyer, but the one her firm used for contract disputes. I didn't hire him. I just had coffee with him. I knew enough about conflict of interest policies to make sure she'd be legally barred from using the most effective advocate in her circle. Checkmate before she even knew we were playing. Next came the accounts. I'd quietly taken her off our joint bank accounts 2 weeks before, moved my salary into a private account, and rerouted all direct debits to new cards. The joint credit cards? Canceled. She got the notification while out shopping for candles and texted me in confusion. I didn't reply. The car she drove, leased under my name, was remotely disabled through the mobile app. When she called me screaming that it wouldn't start, I told her calmly that she'd need to find other transportation. Her gym membership, the one I'd paid for over 2 years? Terminated. Netflix? Logged her out. Amazon? Removed her access. I reclaimed the small comforts she'd taken for granted, not out of spite, but because they were mine. I let her feel the absence of me in every corner of her daily routine. Then I filed. Divorce. No warning. She was served at work. Papers slid across her desk in front of her new HR director, who now had to witness the public fallout of a private implosion. I knew her job mattered to her. It was her image, her identity, her entire validation funnel, and I made sure the narrative reached the right ears. Not with slander. With data. I anonymously forwarded screenshots of her calendar inconsistencies and her use of company resources to schedule personal rendezvous. Not accusations, just proof. Quiet. Professional. Enough to spark internal questions. Enough to stain her reputation without ever touching her with an insult. I reached out to her parents next, not with anger, not with bitterness, but with calm honesty. I invited them for dinner. Showed them the evidence. Told them this wasn't to turn them against her, but because they deserved to know the full truth. Her mother wept. Her father didn't speak. They left the house without a word of defense. Her friends were next. The ones who weren't part of the affair circle. The decent ones. I sent them a brief message. I'm letting you know that I'm divorcing her. I've discovered extensive infidelity. I've attached the documents not to humiliate her, but so you understand I'm not acting out of impulse. I didn't tell them to choose sides. But they did. People don't like being lied to, even secondhand. One by one, she lost the pillars she thought she could lean on. Her email? I waited until the perfect day, 1 week before her big client presentation. That morning, her access to the shared Dropbox folder for the pitch was revoked. Not maliciously, I simply withdrew the content I had built and paid for, the numbers and strategy she'd paraded as her own. When she called, furious, I said, "You don't get to wear my work while sleeping in someone else's bed." Then I hung up. Custody? No kids, thankfully. But the house? Mine, inherited. She was never on the deed. Utilities? Transferred. Her name erased from every contract and document like she never existed. I even changed the locks, legally, after the filing. When she came back one night after packing a few things and found herself standing outside in the rain with no access, she pounded on the door like a stranger. I opened it just enough to hand her an envelope. Inside, a list of every belonging she could claim and a date to collect them. Supervised. Timed. Monitored. She looked up at me with that mixture of hate and helplessness. I didn't blink. Her final thread of power, emotional leverage, was already dead. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I didn't forgive. I just moved, relentlessly, like gravity. She tried one last time to crawl back into my life with promises of therapy and working on us, but I stared straight through her and said, I worked on us. Alone. While you were off performing loyalty with someone else. She broke down in the hallway, sobbing into her own hands, but the tears did nothing. She wasn't crying because she lost me. She was crying because she realized she'd never get another man who built her a kingdom and then destroyed it with absolute silence. I didn't just leave her. I erased the lies she built on my foundation and left her standing in the ruins, clutching pieces of a life she never truly valued. It happened on a Sunday afternoon, the kind of soft, quiet day meant for brunches and polite small talk, not the dissection of a woman's entire fabricated identity. The setting was perfect. Her sister's baby shower, a garden party filled with laughter, champagne flutes, delicate sandwiches, and the kind of white tablecloth innocence that made the truth hit even harder. She had insisted I come, parading some illusion of civility now that the divorce was underway, hoping to show everyone how mature and amicable things were. I said yes, not because I wanted reconciliation, but because she had no idea the storm already waiting for her behind every polite smile. I didn't have to orchestrate it. I just had to let gravity take its course. Her parents were there, of course, stiff and unsmiling, cold as granite in their folding chairs. Her mother barely met her eyes. Her father didn't say a word. Her friends milled around with frozen grins, laughing too loudly, glancing at me like they were waiting for a cue. And I gave it. Subtle. Quiet. I pulled out a small black envelope, identical to the ones used for party games, and handed it to her best friend, the one she used to text about me when she was drunk and cruel and thoughtless. That friend opened it, read silently, and her face dropped like a puppet with its strings cut. One by one, they began to move, like dominoes falling around her. Her aunt, her cousin, the neighbor she used to gossip with over wine, they all received their own little envelope, each containing a curated dose of the truth. Screenshots. Photos. Quotes. Times. Dates. Nothing vulgar. Nothing illegal. Just undeniable. Pure, elegant exposure. She noticed the shift. The sudden silence, the way conversation stopped when she walked by. Her laughs grew louder, more desperate. What's going on? She asked no one in particular, smiling too wide. Is this part of the game? But no one smiled back. Her best friend, now mine, whether she knew it or not, approached her with a look of genuine disgust and handed back the envelope without a word. Wait, she said, the laugh cracking, eyes starting. Why does everyone look like they've seen a ghost? And then her sister, pregnant, radiant, hurt, spoke. Just 2 words. You're disgusting. The crowd rippled. A collective step back. Her sister's husband turned away completely. And that's when she looked at me. I was standing at the edge of the garden, hands in my pockets, watching. I didn't smile. I didn't smirk. I just held her gaze. And she saw it. Every calculation, every trap, every step I had taken with surgical precision. She staggered forward. Jason, she stammered, voice trembling. This is insane. What did you do? I tilted my head slightly, expression unreadable. I told the truth, I said. You should try it sometime. She laughed thin, high-pitched and unhinged, the sound of a dam cracking under pressure. This is ridiculous, she shouted. You're all believing him? You don't even know what I've been through. And she turned to her friends. You know me. You know me. You know what he's like. He's manipulative. Controlling. He tracked me. He's been setting me up. But no one moved. No one reached for her. Her mother finally stood, approached her slowly, and said, You lied to all of us. And you made us lie for you. Then she turned her back. Panic bloomed in her eyes. She turned to the friend she once called her, ride or die, reached out. You know this isn't me. Come on. Say something. But the woman just shook her head. You used me, she said. I covered for you. And all the while, you were laughing behind my back, calling me stupid in your little group chat. I read everything. That was when the last layer peeled off. Her smile shattered. Her face twisted. She spun toward me, desperate, hateful. You think you've won? She spat. You think making me look bad makes you some kind of hero? You're pathetic. You're dead inside. That's why I had to leave you. You're nothing without me. I stepped forward slowly, letting each footfall sink into the silence. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't blink. I looked her in the eyes and said, You had everything. A partner. A future. A home. And you sold it for ego and attention. Now all you have left is an audience, and they're leaving one by one. She tried to speak, but no words came. Her mouth opened, then closed. Her hands shook. She looked around and saw what I saw long before she did. She was alone. Utterly alone. And the man she betrayed, the one she thought was weak, boring, forgettable, was the last one standing. Not with fury, not with bitterness, just the quiet, unshakable strength of a man who'd seen her soul and chose to walk through the fire anyway, just to make sure the world could see it too. She collapsed onto the nearest chair, face pale, mascara streaked. No one comforted her. No one offered a tissue. I stood there and watched as she crumbled, the life she built on lies folding in real time. She looked up at me. I was begging for something: mercy, connection, forgiveness, but I had none left to give. She knew it, and that was what finally destroyed her. It happened at her father's retirement celebration, an upscale banquet with polished silverware, catered dishes, a rented ballroom, and all the pretense of a family that hadn't just been torn apart from the inside out. She was there already when I arrived, standing near the bar in a dress too tight for the occasion, laughing a little too loudly with a group of her work friends who clearly hadn't gotten the full update on who she really was. Her father gave me a nod across the room, respectful, but distant. He knew what was coming. He just didn't know how loud it would get. I walked in, calm, composed, greeted a few familiar faces, and waited. Waited until everyone was seated, until the servers were pouring wine, until the clink of silver against plates was the only sound left. Then I stood. Before we raise our glasses, I said, voice steady, there's something I need to get off my chest. She froze. I didn't look at her. Not yet. Her mother slowly set down her fork. My sister, seated to my left, leaned forward slightly. Her best friend, former best friend now, shifted uncomfortably, already anticipating the storm. Then I turned to her. You've played the victim well, I said, loud enough to silence the entire table. You've cried. You've pleaded. You've pointed fingers. But there are people in this room who still don't know what you really are. She shot up from her chair, already defensive. Don't you dare do this here, she hissed. This is my father's night. I nodded. Exactly. A man who deserves honesty, not a daughter who uses every occasion to pretend she still has any integrity left. Her face turned red, furious. You've made your point already, Jason. You embarrassed me at the baby shower. Isn't that enough for your ego? I stepped closer. You don't get to dictate when the consequences stop. You cheated. You lied. You manipulated everyone here, and now you want grace? After you dragged our marriage into the gutter and laughed while doing it? The room had fallen dead silent. Her coworkers stared. Her aunt gasped. Someone behind me whispered, "Oh my God." But she didn't stop. Her voice rose, wild now. You think you're some kind of saint? You were a control freak. You made me feel worthless. You never once asked me what I needed. I stepped forward, pointing a finger right at her chest. I gave you everything. Stability, loyalty, a future. You needed attention, not love, and when I couldn't give you the drama you fed on, you ran to the first man who told you looked good in that dress. There was movement behind her now, him, the affair partner, trying to slip out quietly. No, I called out, not even turning around. Don't run now, Travis. Come say something. You were bold enough to sleep with her. Be bold enough to stand beside her while she burns. That drew a few scattered gasps. Her boss leaned back in his chair, whispering to someone with a confused, disturbed look. Travis froze mid-step, turned white as a sheet, and muttered, I didn't know. She said they were separated. She screamed over him. You said you'd protect me. The panic had fully set in now. Her voice cracked. You're twisting everything. We were unhappy. You knew we were unhappy. I shook my head. No. You were bored. You mistook peace for emptiness and decided to fill it with betrayal. She tried to lunge forward, but someone held her back, her mother. Stop it, her mother whispered. Just stop. But she didn't. She kept flailing. He's not innocent. He ignored me for months. He didn't care about me anymore. I raised my voice, not shouting, just enough to slice through her hysteria. I was busy holding up a life you were tearing apart behind my back. I was working late to pay for your trips, your wine nights, your fake empowerment therapy, while you were out finding yourself between someone else's sheets. Tears filled her eyes now, but they weren't from remorse. They were from collapse. Her world, the one she performed for Instagram and brunch tables, was being reduced to ashes in front of everyone she hadn't yet lost. She reached again for any weapon left. You're just doing this to punish me, she cried. You're vindictive. You're cruel. This isn't love. I stared down at her, voice low but lethal. No, this is justice. This is the moment the mask comes off. This is every lie you told finally answering back. Someone was filming now. I saw the phone raised behind the couple seated nearest the front. She saw it too. And that was when she truly crumbled. The sobbing started. Not delicate, not controlled, but full body shaking as she dropped into her chair and buried her face in her hands. The room didn't move. No one reached out. No one comforted her. She was surrounded, yet utterly alone. I looked around at the stunned faces. If anyone still wants to defend her, I said, you might want to read the folder I left at the sign-in table. Everything's there. Every screenshot. Every date. Every lie. I turned back to her one last time. You wanted a new life. Now you've got it. And it starts with everyone finally seeing who you really are. Then I straightened my jacket, nodded once to her father, and walked out of the room, leaving behind the echo of truth too loud to forget. 6 months later, no one spoke her name unless it was whispered, and even then, only with the kind of pity people reserve for stories they use as cautionary tales. Her job let her go quietly. No press, no drama, just a sudden retraction of access, a closed-door meeting with HR, and a painfully diplomatic email thanking her for her contributions while making it clear she was no longer part of the company's image. Her coworkers stopped replying to her messages before the ink on the termination letter was dry. Her best friend, the one she thought would defend her no matter what, blocked her on every platform within 24 hours of the confrontation. Group chats died. Invitations stopped. She tried to post once, something vague and performative, taking time to heal and reflect, but no one liked it. Not even the bots. Comments were turned off by the next morning. She moved out of the city 2 weeks after the divorce was finalized, not by choice, but because she couldn't stand the looks anymore. People crossed the street when they saw her. One of her old yoga classmates told her, gently but firmly, that it was better if she didn't come back to the studio. Too much tension. She found a basement apartment 2 hours away, in a quiet town where no one knew her name, and started working part-time at a boutique no one visited. Travis, her great escape, her twin flame, her real love, ghosted her within days of losing the secrecy. Once the cameras and whispers started, he panicked, blocked her number, and deleted his socials. She sent him one last message. We could have had everything. It was never read. She spiraled alone. Her family cut contact entirely after her mother found out how many people she dragged into her lies. Her father returned the watch she gifted him years ago, without a note. Even her little brother, once her biggest defender, removed her from his wedding guest list. Then, one quiet evening, she showed up at my door. I heard the knock, looked through the peephole, and saw what was left. No makeup, hair tangled, eyes swollen from a fresh round of tears. She held something in her hand, our wedding photo. She started speaking the moment I opened the door. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I messed up. I ruined everything. I lost myself. I thought I needed more, but the truth is I didn't even know what I had until you were gone. I said nothing, just stood there, watching. She kept going. Please, just let me talk to you. I've been going to therapy. I'm not who I was. I know I hurt you. I see it now. I think about it every day. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a wrinkled envelope. I wrote everything down. Everything I did. I wanted you to see that I'm taking responsibility. I want to make it right. I don't expect forgiveness. Just something. She looked up at me, trembling. I still love you. I looked at her for a long moment. No anger. No sadness. Just cold, final clarity. Strange, I said. I don't even remember your name anymore. Then I shut the door. She stood there for a while. I don't know how long. I never looked out the window. Never opened the letter. Never felt the need to. I went back to my life, the life I rebuilt without her shadow staining the corners. A life with peace, not performance. With truth, not betrayal. And I never heard from her again. Thank you for listening to my story. I know it was a long one. I'm curious, where are you listening from? And more importantly, did you enjoy it?